Dr. Ashwani Garg, he's a family physician in Barrington, Illinois. He was previously in solo practice for 15 years and was inspired by the movie Forks Over Knives, which, by the way, most of us have to watch, or all of us have to watch, I should say, and CNN's Last Heart Attack, to adopt a plant based diet and to work with his patients on healthy lifestyle changes, including a whole food plant based diet. He practices primary care medicine for all ages, and his office is currently located inside of a fitness wellness center. I have been I've got the opportunity to meet Dr. Garg on multiple occasions, and he is the one who introduced Dr. Neil Bernard to me. And my personal journey was featured in Dr. Neil Bernard's book. So thank you, Dr. Garg, for that introduction. And I'm going to transfer the call now to Dr. Garg.
Thank you. So thank you again for the opportunity for this presentation. Very excited to talk to you, all of you. Thank you for coming. So I really appreciated Dr. Patel's talk, especially in one of those later slides where he said, to be without fear, because as I tell patients too, that fear is the biggest immune suppressant. Fear, it releases stress hormones, even can lead to high blood pressure and higher blood sugar. So such an important point. So what I will do is I will focus mostly on heart disease, but we will talk about the other diseases and how they're reversed. The good news is there's not one separate lifestyle plan for one disease or the other. It's really one plan, and we just apply it maybe slightly differently, but very few modifications. So thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, one second. Okay, so I'm certified in family medicine. I take care of all the ages. And I'm certified in plant based nutrition and lifestyle medicine. And this is just a joke slide. Now, this is not really what we learn on the first day of med school. In fact, I had the opportunity to go to a medical school where in the mid 90s, we actually studied Dean Ornish's research, which was amazing. It's just somehow between the first year and the last year, it kind of got lost in the shuffle, and more pharmaceuticals and procedures came in. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about the research on prevention and reversal of heart disease, and I'm going to include some special materials from India, that many people are not aware that reversal studies are also done in India. And then mechanism of heart disease, and we'll discuss, some nutrition basics. I really appreciated Dr. Patel's presentation, so I don't need to dwell on that, but we will talk about phytonutrients and antioxidants, and then, just to how to assemble healthy meals. So what we're going to do, one exercise, is we're going to just spend 34 seconds. And for those 34 seconds, we are going to just sit quietly, focus on your breathing, become aware of your breath. And so let us get started. Okay, now we're going to talk about what happened in those 34 seconds. What happened in those 34 seconds is someone had a heart attack in the United States, and we're just talking about the USA. close this. Okay. So, heart disease is the most common cause of death, even today, number one, even with the pandemic, accounts for 36% of deaths annually. So we're talking over 800,000 from cardiovascular disease. And the cost is staggering, $316 billion. But that was back in 2010. It has grown so much since then. So as far as heart disease, yes, there are different kinds. We're going to discuss mainly coronary artery disease. But the good news is, even in arrhythmia, even in heart failure, you can see reversal. So in arrhythmia, for example, atrial fibrillation is a very common cause. It is helped tremendously. I've seen a couple of patients reversed with lifestyle changes, which is amazing. And then heart failure, the expert on this subject is Dr. Baxter Montgomery in Houston, who I had great privilege to meet when he came up to Chicago. So as we said, every 34 seconds, one American has a coronary event, and every 1 minute and 23, which is unfortunately decreasing. It's in, heart disease is increasing. An American will die of heart disease. 1/6 of deaths are related to heart disease. 620,000 will have first heart attack. 295,000 will have recurrent heart attack, and then 150,000 will have a silent heart attack without knowing it. This is the number one cause of death globally, accounting for almost 1/3 of all global deaths. Now, interestingly, there was a Dr. Dennis Burkitt who went to rural Africa and found heart disease was virtually not present. So just to put it in perspective by size, so many times we focus on the general things in the news. On the right, war, murder, unplanned events, mental health disorders, car accidents, suicide. We don't focus on the left-hand side. Now, if we put the pandemic inside this chart, it would be somewhere on the order, perhaps just a little bit behind cancer, but still heart disease is ahead of that. So this person, actually, believe it or not, from India, inspired the studies on heart disease reversal. This is Swami Satchidananda, who inspired Dean Ornish. And Dean Ornish really tells this beautiful story about Swamiji in a talk. It's on YouTube. And he talks about how he was introduced in Texas because his sister started meditation with him. That was her guru. And he was deeply depressed. He basically saved his life and introduced him to this science of yoga and probably vegetarianism together with it. They were a Texas, Dallas family. So Dean Ornish was the first to offer documented proof that heart disease can be reversed by lifestyle. And for most of them, the chest pain disappeared. I had the privilege, and I don't know where to find it anymore, of watching, I believe it's from 1991 or 92, the episode of PBS Nova, where they followed this first cohort in reversal. And for 82%, artery clogging reversed. So as I said, this was required reading in my early year of medical school and inspired by Swamiji. Again, he tells the story that he owes all of the credit for his work to Swamiji. So what was the Ornish Plan? We are talking intensive lifestyle change. We are talking low fat. In the beginning, he did lacto-vegetarian with fat-free milk. And then it increased, it expanded to plant-based fully with aerobic exercise, stress management, smoking cessation, and psychosocial support for 5 years. Now, interestingly, he does this comprehensive approach, and that's actually shown in the Nova episode. So there was one participant who was particularly type A personality, would outrun everyone, did the diet perfectly, but he had a very toxic relationship, attitude towards life and towards his wife. So in fact, he said, there's no love between us. And guess what? He is the one who dropped dead in the study. They were all very shocked. That shows how important it is to incorporate stress management and love and support. And that 1 year study initially extended to 5 years. We're talking, angiograms reviewed by cardiologists. So the decrease in stenosis in the narrowing was in the experimental group, and then increase of that narrowing in the control group, which is what we think about as natural history of heart disease. Many cardiologists, even today, will tell the patient, you know what, we will expect to see you back. Heart disease is a progressive disease, it just gets worse from here. And the events, the number of events, which means heart attack and death, were 2.5 times more in the control group. So this is just an illustration of it, where he showed decrease in the narrowing in the treatment group versus the control group. And then how much they adhered to the plan influenced their success. So if you separate out the ones that were most adherent to the plan versus the least adherent, there you see the real difference. Big difference in the diameter. So as you know, the diameter and the flow is related in an exponential pattern. So slight change in diameter means a big change in flow. So then came Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn at Cleveland Clinic, who is not a cardiologist. He's actually a general surgeon. And he showed reversal of heart disease. Now, what he wanted to do, his goal, he wanted to separate out diet from lifestyle. So he did not tell them to exercise. He did not tell them to meditate. He had no psychologists in the group. So even in that trial, he showed reversal. So what the graph on the right is showing is an artery after 3 years of this plan recovering its flow. And then on the left, what you're seeing is a perfusion scan of the heart. So on the top is previous. So the green means no flow, red means flow. And you see the donut is kind of restored on the bottom scan. This is only 3 weeks after. So what it's showing is the most important lesson. Even before the large arteries change, we are seeing change in the microscopic blood vessels that supply the heart. It's really quite amazing what happens. And, we'll talk about why. So Dr. Esselstyn's study was diet only, whole grains, lentils and beans, vegetables and fruits and flax seeds. These were highly motivated patients because they had no alternative. No oil, not olive oil, not even fish oil, nothing. And initially it was 17 and expanded to 177 patients and spanned 44 months. And again, 93% had resolution of symptoms. These were patients that were almost left for dead. Okay, just kind of the doctors gave up on them, except for Dr. Esselstyn. So 22% heart disease reversal on radiology testing, meaning restoration of the heart muscle. 27 of them were able to avoid stent and bypass, and they, generally lost weight, good significant amount. And then just to illustrate how significant these are, it's one thing to put the graphs up there, but when you talk about this gentleman, Jim, that he was able to dance with his daughter on her wedding day, that is really why. So many patients, when you ask about motivation, you want to get the reason why they want to change, and that inspires the change. So again, we're talking cholesterol values. These are dramatic lowering. So with a statin drug, the best I can get, maybe 20-30% lowering, right? So this is talking about 50% lowering of cholesterol. And then again, you're seeing the red. The red is good. This is another view of the heart. You're supposed to see a U shape. The U shape is restored afterwards. And then another case where the donut is restored. That's a cross section. And again, your cholesterol is dropped almost in half. So the idea behind this also, there is Esselstyn, there is Ornish, but there was the Predimed study that was done in Spain, Prevención con Dieta Mediterránea. That's why it's called Predimed. Now, the data was reanalyzed in a different fashion later on of Predimed because it's a very large database. And what they found is on the right side, for example, you have separated out the ones who are most plant-based from the ones who are least plant-based. And interestingly, the ones who are most plant-based did have the best outcome with the cardiovascular disease endpoints with a very significant reduction. So the green line versus the red line. And then I want to show you this trial from Mount Abu, India. This is the lead author is Satish Gupta. So you can view his lectures on YouTube. And the most interesting thing he says is heart disease is, get this, psychosomatic illness. And I'll explain why. So they put so much emphasis on yoga and meditation, but you might think, oh, what does that really mean? But they actually showed angiographic reversal, just like Ornish did. It's just they changed the emphasis. So this was, again, low-fat, high-fiber diet, vegetarian, moderate exercise, and stress management. But the stress management really emphasized Raja Yoga. Whereas in Dean Ornish's case, what he wanted to do is he wanted to translate it to something that, American audience would understand. So this was published in 2011 in the Indian Heart Journal, and HLS stands for Healthy and Happy Lifestyle Program. And they had 123 patients, so very significant number, low fat, high fiber, moderate exercise, and stress management. And how they framed it is heal, die, healthy as in heal, die, and swasth means swa-ast, inner self-consciousness through Raja Yoga. And then instead of, talking about incurable, they talk about incurable, as in curable through your inner strength. So it's a lot of self-discovery and efficacy. It's 7-day residential, followed up 6 months later with a seminar, and then 2 years later, they did repeat angiography. So 91%, they kind of trended towards regression, not statistically significant, but a good trend. And 51% of the lesions, if you add them all up, they showed more than 10% regression. And what they say so inspiring is health is a harmonious interplay of spiritual, mental, and physical energy. So what they're doing is they're just going to the root. So many people, why do they eat unhealthfully? Because they don't have that self-awareness, right? When you gain that self-awareness through meditation, many people want to take care of themselves. Like, for example, right, if you have a dog, you wouldn't feed it some of the things you would feed yourself, right? Because you want the dog to be healthy. If you have a child, you know what? You'll save maybe the best fruits, the best vegetables for that child when they're growing up, like 2-3 years old, when you can control everything. But then you wouldn't give that child similar food to yourself if it's unhealthy. So just if you want to know more, these are the yamas and niyamas of yoga. And that's, again, a different talk that, I would suggest you study those. Then if you go to brahmakumaris.org website, they will talk about just general principles. On YouTube, you can view a lot of videos, and it really changes the outlook. They do have most videos in Hindi. There are many videos in English that they've done in Australia and other parts of the world. So, and then, of course, the Eightfold Path of Buddhism also studied, but many people, in the Western world find that kind of path through Buddhism. So as far as heart disease, no other diet, nothing has been shown to reverse heart disease. Not the Mediterranean, believe it or not. In Predimed, they did not show a statistically significant result. Not low carb, not the standard AHI or DASH diet. DASH diet was for hypertension, but not heart disease. Whole food plant-based is the only one, hands down, that was proven to reverse heart disease. So just, we are going to talk about the process. Atherosclerosis is a gradual process that eventually leads to heart attack and heart disease, meaning hardening of the arteries. It starts in the young age, and then that they have a new term, primordial prevention. So you've heard of primary prevention, preventing the disease. Secondary means preventing death once you have the disease. Primordial begins in the infancy and even before, right, in the womb. What mother's diet is programs them. And we saw this, I believe it's National Geographic video. They took and filmed the baby in the womb. And what they filmed was the baby kind of tasting the food from the amniotic fluid. It was really fascinating. And then thrombosis. Thrombosis is why people have sudden cardiac death, sudden heart attack. I have, 3 late friends who passed suddenly from heart attack, sudden cardiac death. What happens is the blood clots suddenly, then you lack the blood flow. That part of the heart dies and then forms an abnormal rhythm that just stops the whole heart. One was roughly 47, intensive care director at one of the hospitals. One was roughly 52, husband of a doctor I know, and one was roughly 63. Just all taken too soon. Guess what they all had in common? All men, all South Asian. So South Asians specifically have particularly high risk, and also tend to carry a gene mutation called LP little a. So this thrombosis is a process. It involves inflammation, deficiency of nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessel. What you can do to increase is vegetables and especially leafy greens, decreased elasticity, and then inflammation. And interestingly, the endothelium is one cell layer thick, and if it gets disrupted, it can cause sudden blood clot and death. So very interestingly, the thrombosis is actually more dangerous when it happens on the artery on the left, which is nice and open. The artery on the right has over time just closed and closed and closed. And what the body's done is it's kind of compensated, maybe redirecting the blood through other channels. So EPC you should know about. Endothelial progenitor cells are formed on the bone marrow. And what they do, it's showing it going from the bone marrow straight into that endothelium and replacing the damaged cells. This has been shown to be increased by Okinawan vegetables, which, again, there's the Okinawan sweet potato and other vegetables that they typically eat. This is just a particular study. But you can increase it with American vegetables too, especially the leafy greens. And that's how the healing occurs that we showed in those stress test images. This is a new marker. It's called TMAO. It's a new marker of vascular disease that shows what happens in our guts can influence what happens in our arteries. And, there's a whole process, but generally eating fatty foods from animal products like eggs and cheese and meat and dairy products ends up in a pathway laying down atherosclerosis eventually. It's a marker that's been shown to be associated. So Indian vegetarians actually eat the same amount of fat as Indian non-vegetarians. An Indian vegetarian will end up making up for all that meat that a non-vegetarian eats with high-fat dairy products and oils. So that's why you don't see a big difference in heart disease from typical Indian vegetarians versus non-vegetarians. So the process that we want to focus on is chronic inflammation. It is related to all these diseases and all these systems: cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disease, metabolic disorders, bone and joint problems, lung disease. So that's why we see, and Dr. Patel talked about diabetic disease, neurologic disease. There's a Dr. and Mrs. Shirzai who talk about this a lot. So the good thing is, in the plant-based world, you have different doctors focusing on different diseases. Dr. Brooke Goldner, for example, autoimmune disease. Now, guess what? She also gave a talk on COVID and long COVID, because you know what? It also is related to chronic inflammation, platelet aggregation, endothelial dysfunction from the spike protein. So just to show you, yes, there is research on plant-based diets and COVID-19. There are now 2 studies. This was one study called a case control study published in British Medical Journal. And you can find this reported on various websites. And it's being passed around globally, but somehow amongst the medical community, there is a lot of skepticism, believe it or not, about this study. They criticize it. They say, well, it wasn't large enough, there wasn't this or that. But in the end, the shocking result is that over 2/3 reduction in hospitalization and death. That's what to know. And it has been corroborated by another study. So bottom line, the doctor is inside you. This is very damaging to my profession for people to know, but each patient carries his own doctor inside of him or her. So the old nutrition paradigm focuses on vitamins and supplements. That's what I learned in medical school, which leads to poor health outcomes. You don't improve anything. So what I say, it's just rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship. It's not going to help. And the trouble is that people just put supplements on top of a poor diet. So as Dr. Patel mentioned, processed food is just overabundance in American diet, and also Indian diet. All of those snacks, the teas, the snacks, right? All those things that people munch on are very damaging. And then animal food, remember, milk and dairy is liquid meat, as Dr. McDougall calls it. Plant foods are very little. And of those plant foods, half are highly processed plant foods. Fiber is found only in plant foods. So if someone, doesn't want to be completely that way, they can adopt maybe 80% and flip the script of this chart. And it would be great if they could reduce their processed food, animal food to under 12%. The only problem is what Doug Lisle calls pleasure trap, in that those foods eventually become the majority again. So why we propose plant-based? It is easy. It is very easy. Yes, absolutely, Dr. Paidushetty, that South Asians definitely are shown to have narrower arteries, but there's some little bit disagreement that is it because of narrow arteries or is it because of more atherosclerosis? But yes, absolutely, dairy products are, white poison, liquid meat, and absolutely should be taken off the plate, as well as oil. So the problem is, what happens in the grocery store? You have all this processed food, aisles and aisles and aisles of it. Then you have all these digestive supplements, fiber, antacids. They're even starting with your babies, giving them processed food in that middle panel. And then more and more supplements, and people think that will make them healthy, right? Produce section should be the majority. So the new paradigm is holism, that, these foods act synergistically. They interact with each other. And you know what? Brown rice is not a carb. Avocado is not a fat. Fruit is not sugar. So we need to look at the whole food and its whole components instead. And just remember, these foods don't have labels. They might have a label of their company, but that's about it. You don't have to. And nutrition is like a symphony. Each food component acts together with the other. So whole food plant-based diet means whole food plant-based, minimizing refined foods. A lot of factors affect the nutrients at the end. And just to show you a comparison, plant-based is more than adequate on all the nutrients, even protein, and it is the only food that has fiber content. Animal foods do not. So along with the fiber is mixed in all the phytonutrients and antioxidants. This is from China study, this chart. So this is the visit to Washington, D.C. National Zoo. This guy on the left was just eating his greens all day. Every day, no one asked about his protein because massive size, right? And so the protein requirements, again, you can calculate it, but what I'm saying is don't even worry about the slide. Balanced plant-based diet with adequate calories will always contain enough protein, and I stand behind that. No one has to calculate. If there's an athlete that needs double the calories, guess what? They'll get double the protein, and it takes care of itself. Animal protein is dirty fuel, leads to all diseases, which includes dairy. Plant-based proteins are the clean fuel, the best fuel for your body. They are the ones that are anti-inflammatory, removes the the oxidative stress. And we talked a little bit about autoimmune disease, that autoimmune disease also comes because the body starts attacking itself. And we think it's because of the animal proteins that are leaking out from damaged gut and causing the body to form an immune response to itself. So these are the ones that give energy, that give vitality. And we have human eyes to see color for this reason, because we are trained to see the different bright colors and to find them pleasing to us. Carnivore animals don't see color. They don't need to. So phytochemicals don't have a daily reference intake. There's no label that says, but they are essential to life. Only 1/5 of Americans meet the minimum intake. And then flavonoid, just to go over some of them, again, I'll just run through them quickly. Flavonoids, antioxidant, antiplatelet, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. So they can be found in leafy greens, citrus, healthy teas, and even herbal teas like rooibos. Rooibos tea is the best substitute for the Indian chai. And as far as the Indian snacks that someone asked about, sure, there are ways to veganize them, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily healthy. But of course, they can be treats. And I can attest to that because my sister's wedding was in Buena Park, California at the Jain Temple. It is absolutely imperative that everything brought in be vegan. So even the Vedic priest used olive oil in the ceremony. That's a very good use of olive oil, by the way. And it smelled amazing too. So carotenoids, these are the ones that reduce the muscle fatigue, reduce the risk of prostate cancer, and all cancers, I would say, found in carrots and fruits, vegetables, tomatoes. They also provide a bit of a sunscreen and protection for the skin from acne and other diseases. And then we talk about non-starchy polysaccharides. They help in preventing cancer, helping brain development. Then we have lignans. This, I think, should be essential. Lignans in the flax seeds should be essential. They help regulate hormones. They are provided as a phytoestrogen, which are beneficial even with breast cancer genes. And then glucosinolates, these are the sulfur-containing compounds. This is why sometimes if you overcook these vegetables, they can be a little bit smelly. But the key is just to cook them lightly. Great recipe, Madhuri, for the chai. So isoflavones, these, in my humble opinion, are really essential to plant-based diet. The problem is these anti-soy people did a very bad disservice, because what happened is people got afraid of soy and said, okay, we'll just have dairy. But guess what? Dairy has all the cow estrogens, xenoestrogens they call it. And then omega-3. So omega-3, in my humble opinion, should come from flax, chia, plant foods. And the key is curcumin, which is turmeric, absolutely increases absorption of brain DHA. And it will help, it will make up, there's no research showing that vegans need to consume fish or even DHA supplements. So these slides are from eat2beat.com. Let me just make sure, eat2beat. eat2beat.com, which is Dr. William Lee of the Angiogenesis Foundation. I can't remember if it's org or com, but anyway, these are the foods that were shown to help in cancer in the Petri dish. They dripped components on top of the cancer cells. These were shown to benefit that. So fruits, then you have vegetables, all the colorful ones, legumes, nuts, and beans. There's a database there if you register for free that you can view all the compounds. So I want to just point out black rice, which is really amazing. It's also called forbidden rice. It is, definitely much more expensive, but a little bit of black rice can be mixed into brown rice, and it absolutely is very high in antioxidants, like a green tea would be. And then herbs and spices, these are medicinal. So, people make chutneys that are used in Indian cooking, Indian meals. And then sometimes you can just chop up these herbs and put it on top of your food. So, is eating plants only healthy? Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics says, in brief, yes, not only is it healthy, but may be superior in prevent diseases and treat diseases. So interestingly, they actually mentioned prevention and treatment. Somehow that was missed, published a while ago. And then just this is an example. If people need food pyramid, sure, that's great. But overthinking it is not necessary. But the key is the high fat foods are at the top, meaning they shouldn't have a large proportion of the diet because of insulin resistance that Dr. Patel talked about. And then nutrient density is Dr. Patel may have mentioned. That's how you can be full is by whole plant foods. And yeah, this is just showing you that animal foods and refined foods are very calorie dense, whereas vegetables, we're talking 100 calories per pound. That's like nothing. So, and lastly, a little bit about mindful eating. That in Ayurveda, it is also thought that if you honor your food and you eat mindfully, that you'll incorporate the nutrients better into your body. So, yeah, when I say plant based, I really mean plants only, just to be clear. So, yeah, other lifestyle factors. So, Dr. David Katz mentions feet, forks, fingers, sleep, stress, and love. And as far as the love, it is definitely emphasized in Dean Ornish's work. And then these are just a few resources that, I can definitely share them on the Facebook page of PBNM. There's many, many more. And hopefully, if you can go after this whole seminar to PBNM's Facebook page and just share helpful resources you have found useful that are whole food, plant-based Indian resources and videos. So this slide I'm so happy I got to participate, is at Venkata Vedam's house, Venkata and Sharmila's house, that, I got to meet Srinivas, their friend, who, believe it or not, he helped, the family helped him to reverse his heart disease. So this is a real example. This is the set of the, producers of Eating You Alive are in the process. It's a long process of producing a movie for the Indian audience. And what I did was I pasted the link to the brief video just to intro to this movie. So this is, again, wisdom. The human body heals itself. Nutrition provides the resources to accomplish the task. And that, Albert Einstein, very smart gentleman. These are my kids at the Einstein, at the National Academy of Sciences. Nothing will benefit human health and increase the chance for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet. I can't say 100% whether he said these words, but they are commonly attributed to him. And, at one point, he was offered beefsteak at a conference, and he said, "No, thank you. That's lion's food. I won't eat that." So thank you, everyone. So yeah, I would love to take a few questions, and if if I can just have them distilled down to maybe the most salient few, that'd be great.
Thank you, Dr. Garg, for a wonderful presentation. I learned quite a few things.
Thank you.
And some of the tips that you shared. I do have, how maybe we'll take like 3 or 4 questions. Let me just summarize them.
Sure.
Uh, Somebody did ask, can you please address the role of probiotic foods, especially probiotic dairy foods such as kefir and yogurt?
Right. Yeah, the great news is I just learned last week how to make the best yogurt from plants. So in my case, what I did was I soaked the cashews and mixed some soy milk. So to get the best mix of protein and fat in a healthy way, and I just used a probiotic capsule, opened it up, and made it just like Desi yogurt. It was so thick. We even made curry from it. And if anyone likes curry, you'll know how amazing it is to have that warm curry. So I do suggest it because it may not be necessarily the bacteria itself, but it's the microbiome.
Doc, Dr.
it
Garg, I
makes
think
it
y- we
okay.
couldn't hear you clearly.
Most amazing yogurt from cashew and soy milk. So yes, I do suggest it. Popular in UP and Punjab. And have you heard of that kanji, which use beetroot and carrots?
Sorry,
So
Dr.
did
Garg,
you?
I think you might have to repeat yourself.
Oh, sure. Okay.
We did lose you briefly.
Okay, sure. You know what? Let me. Okay. So I was saying the Indian probiotic beverage is called kanji in UP and Punjab,
Yes,
and
it's
it's made from
commonly
beetroot and carrot.
drunk.
What?
Yes,
Yeah.
I said it
So
is a common drink in the northern parts of India.
yeah, yeah, and then there's kimchi, there's sauerkraut, there's the probiotic yogurts you can make from oats. I've done all of those, and it's great. Yeah, and your particular yogurt is amazing, the almond one.
Yes, and even you can prepare basic soya yogurt, using soya milk that's available at the store. The West Soy brand
Right.
is usually the one that I have had the best success with. Even the Trader
Yeah,
Joe's brand is pretty good too.
that's great. Trader Joe's shelf stable without additives. Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. Let me go to the next question. Somebody did ask, is it possible to quantify how much of soluble and insoluble fiber intake I should take to reverse the atherosclerotic plaque I might have accumulated before I went vegan?
Sure. Yeah. So what I like to say is, you know what? The details take care of themselves. Don't even worry about. So I showed the pyramids. Don't even worry about the details. They will take care of themselves. So if you just think of the four food groups mainly, is whole grains, lentils and beans, fruits and vegetables. That's really all you need to know. And each meal should incorporate reversal and weight loss. They would incorporate more of the raw foods. So we know about the Venkataveda method, right, Sharmila? That you do, so the greens are at the bottom, then you put the legumes on top, and then you might put
That
chutney
is
or
correct.
yogurt on top of that. So that's one way to improve your insoluble fiber intake. Soluble fiber is in whole grains like brown rice and oats. But I would say just have, whatever you want to eat, and don't worry about the exact numbers or details. No protein counting, no carb counting, none of that. But generally, okay, if you want a rule of thumb, the results happen from 40 to 80 grams of fiber per day, which is double of the USDA's requirement.
And legumes have fiber, the plants have fiber, so you don't need to like consciously put an effort to look for fiber rich foods.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
uh,
USDA guidelines say make half your grains whole. I say make all of them whole.
this question is a pretty common question. We get this a lot. Any ways to reduce gas from eating beans?
Oh yeah, so but according to the Esselstyn family, this is their advice. Let her rip. That's what they say. They say don't worry about it. But okay,
Okay.
there is alpha glucosidase, which absolutely helps. Alpha glucosidase is available as Beanzyme, Beanzyme. It's available online. And then for some people, probiotic foods do help.